unpredictable, unstable, and unnecessary behaviours I'd engage in instantaneously. The intense sensitivity to everything around me, coupled with the instability of my emotions and my inability to manage them, propelled the volume and scale of my impulsive behaviours. Risky, harmful, and even scary at times, the ramifications of these behaviours only intensified my encompassing cognitions. I would feel lost, overwhelmed, and out of control, acting out without even realising it, from self-harm, smashing plates and spending, getting out of moving vehicles, purging food, and at its worst, physically hurting myself and those around me. The immediate consequences of these behaviours met some kind of need to feel, to be acknowledged, or even just to have a second to breathe before it all started again. The needs my impulsive behaviours met were only short-lived, albeit in an unhealthy way, and more than anything, it truly did push those closest to me away. These impulsive behaviours that warped my life further only complemented the stigma of an irrational, irresponsible sufferer of borderline personality disorder, a person to be avoided, incurable, a person who cannot get better, apparently. However, after spending years of being terrified of what behaviour I would engage in next that day, I'm learning these impulsive cognitions are not a life sentence, but something I will need to learn to manage. To pull the reins on escalation, to slow it down and get through that moment of all or nothing, to learn to find a way to cope without the damage I caused to myself and others, sitting through discomfort, battling the urges and communicating the torment I felt inside. Distress tolerance, temperature, intensity and pace breathing, improved self-soothing, wise mind and mindfulness. The dialects and skills I now use are endless. I still battle impulsivity every day, but I now use these skills and experiences to manage those emotions and get my needs met, finally, in a much more healthy way. It's getting less pervasive, less detrimental, and I'm functioning again, finally, in the world. But more than anything, no longer am I terrified of myself. For so long I was. And I assure you one thing, I am not incurable. I have a personality to be celebrated. I am so much more than borderline personality disorder, and it will never dehumanize me again.
Dissociation occurs for me when my BPD is either in a state of extreme high or extreme low. It is one of the 9 traits of having BPD, and I'm going to talk about what dissociation means to me, how I've coped with different types of dissociation, the impact of dissociation on my life, and the coping mechanisms I've learned to deal with my BPD through therapy to better control it. Sometimes I can be aware when the dissociation is happening in response to hearing something triggering from past events. Other times, when I have been in severe crisis or in a state of mania, I have no recollection of the dissociation happening. This is called dissociative amnesia. For me, dissociative states can last for any time between 1 hour and 48 hours, depending on my level of distress. It's not daydreaming as many people like to think of it as, and can be different each time.
My experience with self-harm. Self-harm is one of the diagnostic criteria for BPD. It's different for everybody. There is no one reason, experience, or method. Only it is a painful, distressing thing to go through. This is my experience of self-harm. When I started self-harming, it was something that I was in control of, and it helped me to cope. It served a number of different functions for me. It helped me zone out, and to detach myself from racing thoughts and emotions, or to snap out of low mood. It helped to have something physical to use to articulate how I was feeling, and it helped me to make sense of my feelings. I gained a lot of clarity after self-harming that I couldn't see before. It helped me contain my anxiety. and it can help me feel like emotions or memories are boxed off, like they disappear when the wound is stitched up. Sometimes it helps me to seek care from others, but often it served as a way of punishing myself for things I felt I had done wrong. Each way of self-harm was different. It could be for any one or many of these reasons. Self-harm for me mostly didn't indicate I wanted to end my own life. Rather, it was something I did to help me cope with life and make it more livable. It's a way of controlling and regulating my emotional state. The more I do it, the more I felt I needed to do it. It was something I had to do every day to get me through. It was impossible to exist without it. But the demands of self-harm grew and grew until it was something I wasn't in control of anymore. Every self-harm had to meet certain rules that no one was making, but they were very present for me. Each way had to be worse. It had to go further and further. Self-harm became something compulsive and ritualized, something that I felt like I had to do. Each wound had to have a certain number of stitches. If it didn't meet this number, I could go from incredibly calm to hugely distressed in a number of seconds. The number in question kept getting higher. I had to do it more severely. It got more and more extreme, to the point of needing to go to hospital multiple times a week. I feared self-harming and the pain it would bring me, but it was something I felt I had to do on designated days in a specific way to end up with a number of stitches. If the number of stitches or the severity of the wound wasn't right in my head, or if I hadn't done it on the right day, it could push me to a new level of distress, one where I would contemplate taking my own life, purely because I couldn't meet the standards I felt I had to, even though nobody was setting them. Self-harm had moved from a coping strategy to an addiction to a compulsion. It took over my life completely. Now I have gone without self-harming for the longest period since I started doing it. And I still miss the security, the comfort, the support it gave me, the relief, the feeling of being in control, the ritual, and so much more. But I don't miss the fear and dread of feeling like I had to do it again. The instability of my emotional state, being at the mercy of 1 or 2 stitches, the pain, feeling unable to wear short sleeves in public, the distress it caused my family, and all the other problems it caused. People who self-harm are told they must go to A&E to get treatment. They are judged a risk to themselves and not responsible if they don't, but are met with judgment and hostility when they do. Sometimes doctors couldn't stitch my wounds because of scar tissue, but often they decided it wasn't worth their time because I would do it again. I would feel often judged and unsupported by those treating me. People would think it was appropriate to stitch a wound without offering me anaesthetic, or to do so without having a single word to me. Because of some bad experiences at emergency departments, I made a hospital passport with my care coordinator detailing my needs regarding how my wounds were treated. Some nurses took the time to read this and to talk to me about these issues and work with them, and I really appreciate the staff who did. Others would ignore the needs detailed or not even read it, leading me to have panic attacks at the hospital and to leave feeling incredibly distressed despite feeling in control when I arrived. After having received a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, my treatment has been significantly better. People are taking the time to understand my needs and work with them. They treat me kindly and communicate with me rather than judging me. If they are capable of this level of compassion, competence, and ultimately care for one diagnosis, why can't BPD be met with the same level of care?